Since the start of this YouTube channel, we've gotten a ton of requests for a video on Lin Dan's footwork, and particularly how Lin Dan looks like he's walking on court. Anyone who has played this sport competitively before knows just how fast the game is, and how hard we must work on our physical to maintain long rallies. Badminton is known to be an extremely physically demanding sport, but yet, we have someone like Lin Dan, who not only looks like he's just walking on court, but he's doing it against some of the best players in the world.
Very long, then you...
So how does he do it? How can Lin Dan just walk on court? The simplest answer to why Lin Dan can walk on court is because he has superb shot quality and anticipation skills. But we'll come back to this later. What we first want to discuss is Lin Dan's actual footwork movements and how they differ from other players. Lin Dan frequently uses what we'll refer to as step footwork. This is footwork, where you're taking walking steps or crossovers to move around the court, as opposed to what we call glide footwork, which involves more shuffling and sliding your feet. Neither footwork is strictly better than the other. They have individual characteristics that make each better for certain scenarios. Step footwork is generally less tiring and more efficient, with the drawback lying in its requirement to have near-perfect split-step timing. The reason is because you take larger steps that will let you get to various corners and recover much more easily. Walking steps tend to be the movement that's much more natural to us, and is another reason why it's less tiring compared to something like shuffling. The downside with walking steps, however, is that it's very unforgiving when it comes to split-step timing and shot quality. If you mess up your shot and need to split-step unexpectedly, your footwork will naturally look more choppy as you scramble for the shuttle. Shuffling and gliding, on the other hand, is more forgiving if you mess up your shot and need to push off earlier or later than expected. This is because your legs are generally always in a loaded position, ready to push off. Of course, the cost is that you'll be more tired as you're essentially holding a half wall sit. Shuffle movements themselves are also more suited towards retrieving fast shots close to you rather than covering the full court. You can keep these things in mind when you watch the pros play and think about why they move the way they do. For example, a lot of players like to use a little bit of a glide in their recovery after playing a drop, because drops tend to be slower shots that their opponents can change speed on. By using a glide on your recovery, you can keep your legs loaded and ready for immediate push-off. Here's another example, but in the front court. If you play a fast, flatter push, there isn't always time for you to go through the rhythmic walk-back recovery. Here you can see Lee Chongwei shuffle because he needs to be ready if his opponents cut off the bird early, even if the intention is for the opponent to play a late forehand. Now that we're thinking about the shot we play and how it'll affect our movement on court, let's look at what Lin Dan does to allow him to move so effortlessly. The key to Lin Dan's ability to walk on court lies in his shot quality and choice. Whenever you see Lin Dan walking on court, it's usually after playing clears, lifts, and pushes. These are shots that, when played with high shot quality, give you time to return to the middle, often at a walking pace. And that's really the key with Lin Dan. As the GOAT of badminton, Lin Dan undoubtedly has some of, if not the best, shot quality on the planet. Let's take a look at his pushes and clears, for example. Most of these shots are played at a speed and height that not only make them extremely hard to cut off, but also limit the kinds of shots Lin Dan's opponents can play. As a general rule, the faster a shot is, the harder it is to take speed out of it and play a return with extremely good control. No player can consistently play a deceptive stop drop off of Lin Dan's pushes, nor do they want to, as slow shots tight to the net are easy for male players to attack when they're in position. Returning shots will almost always have to come back with some speed, and is a key part of why Lin Dan often seems like he's walking on court. The shuttle will pretty much always pass the service line, which allows him to position further back and get to clears, drops, and smashes without a lot of problems. Compare this now to pushes from some other players, which while may be fast, they're often very flat and can be cut off. Thus, you'll also see that the responding footwork is also generally shuffle and gliding footwork, instead of walking steps. Essentially, if you want to walk like Lin Dan on court, you not only need to use walking steps in your footwork, but you have to play shots that give you time while making it difficult for your opponent to attack. It should be noted that Lin Dan doesn't always walk, and he doesn't always hit the perfect shots. He will make use of glides and shuffles, particularly when he plays drops, drives, and nets, because those shots and what the opponent can respond with require him to move much faster. There are times when Lin Dan makes mistakes as well, where his clear or lift isn't of the best quality, and you can see his footwork get scrambly in these situations. On a side note, that's also why Viktor Axelsen had a good record against Lin Dan. Axelsen is much taller than your typical badminton player, even among the pros, and can often cut off the shuttle much earlier. This throws off Lin Dan's split-step timing, and reveals some of the problems with step footwork that you should keep in mind if you're trying to emulate Lin Dan's footwork. Additionally, Lin Dan's ability to walk on court also comes from his anticipation skills. Traditionally, we're taught to return back to the middle of the court so that we're ready to cover the entire court. At a higher level, however, we need to put more emphasis on preparing for the most likely or dangerous shot and learn to anticipate your opponent's returns more often. Lin Dan can often walk or move at a slower pace than what you think a pro should be moving at, because he's often already standing at where his opponent's return is. Let's look at Lin Dan's defense, for example. Wherever Lin Dan lifts, he's pretty much always hovering more towards the side to cover a straight shot. This is because the straight shot is the fastest and most likely option, while the cross shot is one that, if you react fast, can often cut off early and gain the opportunity to counterattack. Similarly, watch where and how Lin Dan stands when he plays high-quality nets. At certain placements, his opponent is unable to play super flat pushes or drives, and is almost always forced to lift or spin net. Since a high lift is a slow shot that Lin Dan can get to pretty easily, he will position to watch the net more closely, as any net is generally the faster shot. And because he is already standing close to the net, he doesn't really need to sprint forwards or anything to gain control. It is also important to note that the closer you look at Lin Dan's footwork, the more you'll realize that he isn't always casually walking on court, like we might think. Lin Dan's feet are actually quite active when he plays. For example, when you watch Lin Dan split step on close-ups, he's not really standing flat on the ground. He generally stays on the balls of his feet and keeps his legs loaded so he can instantly push off. The same can be said when people refer to him as waiting for the next shot. He's not just standing in the corner waiting for the bird to come. There are a number of small movements that are really important in allowing him to reach the next shuttle. One particular thing to highlight is how Lin Dan uses transitional steps, where he will make a foot adjustment to reposition himself into a stance where he can push off. This is super important, alongside recovering your upper body so that you don't get stuck in corners. And it is why Lin Dan can often afford to return to the middle a little slower. He is often already physically prepared to push toward any spot on court. It's a similar idea when we say walking steps. We don't mean walking like you're casually walking down the street. In badminton, walking steps are still active steps, where you make long strides, often with a little skip for speed. Camera angles might make Lin Dan seem slow, but he is still very fast.
There's no doubt what the tactic is. That's...
Now, being able to walk like Lin Dan on court right after seeing this video is unrealistic. But there are lessons you can take away and try to implement in your practice. The first is a consideration of the differences between step and glide footwork, and how you can add them to your game. Gliding and shuffling are generally movements that are more tiring, especially when trying to cover long distances on court. But they give you more leeway for your split step, in case your opponent hits the shuttle unexpectedly. Step footwork, on the other hand, allows you to move far greater distances without expending as much effort. But it requires very good split step timing, which in turn is heavily reliant on you playing good shots. Consider the shots you play and adjust your footwork based on it. Similarly, you should also look to adjust your positioning on court based on your shot selection. Your ultimate goal should be to limit your opponents to just a few options with your shot and adjust your footwork to cover just those options rather than the whole court. Of course, it's much easier said than done, but having this intention during your practice and play is the first step to achieving your goals. As always, if you like this video, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button so you don't miss out on future content. Let us know what you want to see next in the comments below. And thanks for watching.